right, welcome back. It's still Daybreak live from Dominion Television here in Ibadan. And this is the time we have our analysts in the house where we have our reviewers corner. We're going to be looking at stories you just heard from our headlines this morning. And we have no other than Mr. Sam Wuku in the studio here, who is the deputy editor of the Nigerian Tribune. Mr. Sam, good to have you today.
Good to be here. Good morning once again.
Are you happy to be a Nigerian?
Yeah.
You are.
I don't get choice.
You don't get choice?
Yes, I don't get choice.
Why? Is it by choice or it's what you feel?
Interestingly, it's not by choice. If you read that, see like the kind of thing. Where you find yourself is where you...
So, if you have opportunity, would you love to get out of here?
I've had opportunities to leave, but I chose not to, honestly.
You like Nigeria like this?
Guy, Nigeria is good. It's just that we've been unfortunate with a lot of things. But honestly, you can't have it better, except that some of the things we see flying around, sometimes they are not as easy as they appear. But honestly, this is a fantastic country God has given us. But unfortunately, they say when God give you bald head, He will give you beer. Yes, when you have a good country, you don't have good leaders. And this country looks like it's like a puppet on a string. So some people are there telling us what direction to go, what things to do, what things not to do. So sometimes when you sit down and do the analysis, you find out that it becomes very disheartening. But hey, running out of the country, running away from here is not the easiest thing. Look at South Africans. How many of them ran during the apartheid? They are still there. And today, I think they are the better for it. It could be better than it is, but generally, the country, they have a better country in terms of many
talking about
indications. Yes.
Movement, immigration issues. Samson,
we'll talk about immigration issues this morning, and it has been a topic that has not left the papers recently. It has always been there. And talking about the recent conditions given by countries for immigrants to get into their country. UK, for one, has had the most of the stringent conditions, and also the United States. Even Donald Trump, when he came to power, made some announcements as regards who get to stay in the US, when and how. But then, talking about the conditions given by the United Kingdom, there are a lot of issues which will affect Nigerians, let me put it that way. And it might not affect Nigerians if Nigeria is the country most Nigerians want it to be. But talking about the extended residency requirement for settlement in the UK, as we speak, it is initially 5 years. But then they are saying, look, it has to be 15 years now. So if you are thinking of coming to stay in the UK, settle in the UK, and become a resident, you have to spend at least 15 years before you be considered to be a second-class citizen, because there is no place like home. That's how I will put it. So your primary country, that's where you only become the first-class citizen. That's my take. Now, the UK is saying, before you become a citizen, that's how it should be. There are also stringent conditions for medical practitioners in Nigeria who find it so easy to move out of the country before now. So the UK is saying they are cutting their immigration by 50,000. So 50,000 less immigrants for the UK when it comes to the health sector now. So Nigerian doctors and nurses who are moving out of the country will have to wait to see what their fate will be. So how do you see this as a country? Why is it bothering Nigerians that this is happening? Because Nigeria should also be in the place to dictate who gets into Nigeria, when and how.
Let me look at it this way. If it happens that the United Kingdom wants to further exert its slave master-slave relationship, there is no other example, there is no other time, no other focus than now. It has never been this bad. If I must begin with that, it has never been this annoying. For those of us who grew up in the 80s and the 90s, I remember that I have my elder brother who teaches somewhere in the UK, traveled without a visa.
He
traveled. I was in primary school in 1982. He traveled without a visa. His passport was stamped at the point of entry. But he needed to hold 300 naira. And I remember the family running a year to raise the 300 naira. I was already in primary school. I was wise enough to know what was going on. It is that same UK that has now placed stringent conditions for Nigerians to come into their country and be second-class citizens. I totally agree with you that you go there to become a second-class citizen as an immigrant. Those whom they give preferences, whom they give their passport and so on, are those who must have gone the very extra mile to be able to get those things. Now, between 1982 and now, what has changed? They have remained progressively maintaining their own standards. We have progressively been deducting from our own standards. We have been on a steady decrease as a country. And it has been very difficult for us to hold our country together and say, okay, this is the direction we are going, and this is how we want to achieve that vision. I think it began to fall since Gowon left and things like that. So that is by the way. But now with Britain coming with those conditions, what does it tell you? It tells you that, look, go and fix your home and leave us alone. The ones who are there are slaving, you know. Jackpying, as we call it here, does not even mean that life is a bed of roses for you over there. I remember as a child, as a younger person, I was in primary school when my brother traveled. When he writes letters, there was no email and things like that. When he wrote letters then, he will be warning some of us who were, because we did small ipata, we did some truancy, level of truancy, and he will be writing that one of the things that had stuck in my head is that you don't pick money on the streets of Europe. I remember him saying that long ago, that he will put us, he wanted to drag some of us. He said, let me be frank with you, he said he was coming to take me and he was going to put me in a polytechnic in either Germany or Austria, and that then I would know that it's not easy. I say, when I have all these polytechnics here and so on, I said, I'm not going to go anywhere. I ran from home actually. You know, now why am I saying all this is that, first, it was not meant to be like this. It was not meant to be that Britain will be telling you, hey, don't come here, and when you come, you'll be slaving for them. All the people who are there now, you don't have you don't enjoy any benefits. You only slave, and you slave for 10, 15 years. They will now look at you and say, no, we don't want you to be our citizen and things like that. And interestingly, some of the people who had crossed that Rubicon are among the people who are dictating some of these things. So now that they have enough of immigrants in there, because they did it to Jamaica first, they used people from the Caribbean to build all their structures and so on. That is why those ones are like a gungweja in their neck. That's why those ones are a big problem for them. They use them, slaves to build their structures, to build roads, to do all the things they did. You now turn around to tell them you can't be a first-class citizen, and they begin to segregate and put you in certain places. There are places where they can find you. There are levels to which you can attain. The best you can do is be a music star, or you'll be running a sports star and things like that. Nobody, look at what they did to people like John Barnes. Look at what they did to Linford Christie. So these things are annoying me as an individual, because I know that those people are just using us as slaves to build their structures. You are the ones who take care of their elderly. You are something a typical Briton cannot do. Once their parents get to a certain age, they put them in care homes. They can't do those things. You are the one who work shifts 24 hours sometimes, and they at best work 12 hours, 8 hours, and get all the benefits which you work for. I think we need to look back. Okay. You know, I'm so angry that I'm getting to lose focus on the question. But the fact remains that we need to come back home. By coming back home, I mean those of us who are home, we have to call ourselves to order. We have to call ourselves and think and see how we can manage this situation.
Just before you go ahead, I just wanted to say, just like something I said before, I mean, why can't the reverse be the case with Nigerians? Why can't we also do this to them? It's not possible, Abi. We need them, they don't need us.
It's unfortunate that they had needed us. Of course, we know that historically all the structures they have, they used all the wealth they used to build Europe and America came from Africa. So they had needed us. You know, when they were planning their great schism and all those things, when they were planning those things, they were planning based on the wealth they have found in Africa. So they needed a way to keep Africa perpetually enslaved and keep the people down, so that we will not use our wealth to develop ourselves, so that they will be able to find a way to use Nigerians and other Africans to...
Before I ask you the last question on this particular topic that talks about how will Nigeria escape this particular current problem, let me quickly highlight some things to you. Approximately 130,000 Nigerians travel to the United Kingdom each year for various purposes, including business, tourism, and visiting family. This figure has remained relatively consistent in recent years. In addition to short-term visits, there has been a notable increase in long-term migration from Nigeria to the UK. Between June 2022 and June 2023, about 141,000 Nigerians migrated to the UK, making Nigeria one of the top non-EU sources of immigrants during that period. These statistics highlight strong and enduring ties between Nigeria and the UK, encompassing both short-term visits and long-term relocations. Why should a Nigerian relocate to another country? That brings us to the question, when will Nigeria be able to become a country where other people would want to be, rather than a country where everyone wants to leave the ship?
It goes back to leadership, and also goes back to...
What should Nigeria do? What should Nigerians do? What should the Nigerian leaders do?
Okay. Now, Nigerian leaders should think back some 20, 30 years ago. You know, think back 40 years ago. Because I remember very well that 30, 40 years ago, Nigeria was a beautiful bride. I remember reading about First Act 77. You know, we didn't know what it meant, but it meant that Nigeria was so wealthy that it had to bring all the blacks from across the world to come and say, okay, hey, this is what we have. Come here, enjoy yourselves, you know, do dance, you know, and so on and so forth, including many blacks from the United States. We had that potential. We had the oil. Enough for people to say that our leader then, Yakubu Gowon, said the problem was not the money, but how to spend it. We had, you know, comparing now, back then we had the University College Hospital in Ibadan, which was rated the 6th best hospital in the world, where migrants come to work here. I remember a lot of Indians in the University of Ibadan. I grew up around the University of Ibadan. I remember a lot of Indians. I remember a lot of Ghanaians who were teachers here. I remember a lot of white people who were working in this place, working including the University College Hospital. We had a lot of them. We even grew up with one, we used to call her Henrietta, but it was later we knew that she was Henrietta, but we knew her as Oyibo, because the father is white and the mother is a Nigerian. And we grew up together in the same neighborhood. We went to the same primary school. So, what has changed? Leadership. We began to degenerate. Military interventions in our leadership and so on and so forth. So, between the time we are talking about, that time when the white man, by white man I mean Britons now, come to Nigeria to seek greener pasture, and now, between that time and now, we have gone a full circle of poor leadership, of poor economic management, and a whole lot of things which have thrown us back to the Stone Age, more or less. In the last 20, 30 years, our electricity has not been better than it is now. The population has continually been growing, and as the population is growing, the infrastructure is not growing. We keep developing urban slums everywhere, in every state. Everybody, this one will buy land, this one will create a road here, this one will create a... When you look at our cities from aerial views, you will be ashamed of yourself as a Nigerian. So what we need is leadership, simple and...
Do you think we can go back to 30, 40 years ago?
Yes, I think we can go back to 30, 40 years ago when we get saturated. We will get to a certain level, people will have to ask questions. And what are the questions we are going to ask? Shana, like this, we go day. Because we ourselves know that things are not right. The leaders know that things are not right. They do. now sit down and because you know we think everything in naira and kobo in this country. You know, nearly everybody thinks in naira and kobo. One of the things I began to think about yesterday is Tinubu, what he is trying to do. I want to concede that maybe he's looking at macro economic situation, build a framework, a macroeconomic framework for Nigeria, so that in another decade or thereabouts, it will begin to trickle down to the microeconomic indices in the country, which will now begin to make Nigerians to think that yes, maybe we have a direction. I'm beginning to concede that to this administration.
Okay.
Because you and I complain about the price of gari, we complain about the price of rice, granite oil, you know, spaghetti and things like that. But he is looking at, okay, what are the structures I'm going to build that will eventually bring down the prices of these things? Maybe, I'm beginning to think maybe we'll concede that to him and grow in hope that it will be like that. Very
quickly, let me ask this question. There are some countries in Africa, as we speak, that are being ruled by the military. We'll talk about Burkina Faso. Captain Ibrahim Traore seized power in the year 2022 by a coup. In Mali, Colonel Assimi Goïta has led the country since 2021. In the Niger Republic, General Abdulrahmani Chiani took control in July 2023. And talking about Gamo, General Brice Oligui in Gema overthrew President Ali Bongo in August 2023. We have Sudan, we have Myanmar, but then I want to talk about the most recent three. They have had issues with the UK government, with European countries generally, and of course America. That's a problem. Let me now ask, are African countries stooges to the Europeans and Americans, that when they realize the military has taken over in the country, they suddenly become the enemy of that particular country? What are they? What do they stand to benefit?
If you want a yes or no answer, I will say yes, straight off.
What do they stand to benefit that makes them an enemy of an African country being ruled by the military? And then the presidents democratically elected in the country, are they the problem? Are they too submissive to the European power or the American power?
Yes, they are too submissive. If we want to answer it in yes or no question answer. Do you know that the CFA franc, the CFA, which is used by francophone countries of Africa, especially West Africa, it's an attachment to this French franc. So they don't have a currency of their own. If you go to those countries, the milk you buy on the street is imported from France. If you go to those countries, they still use there's this thing we grew up to know as shago. They still use it to buy fuel, some of which is imported also and smuggled from Nigeria. So, you have it in Cameroon, you have it in Togo, in Benin Republic, then jump Ghana, get into Burkina Faso, which is beginning now to say, hey, enough of this. And you go to Mali and so on. The problem they have with the Western countries is that if they are exploiting your minerals and you raise your voice,
it's only become an enemy.
They become an enemy. That's what happened to Olympio in Togo. They killed him like a common criminal. It happened in the Central African Republic. It happened in Guinea and all these places.
What happened to Muammar Gaddafi?
So at the end, you now find out that, look, what is going on? Yoweri Museveni in Uganda, he said presidents of Africa got in a plane and we are on their way to intervene in what was happening in Libya. They were airborne already. They were moving. And somebody called them from one of the Western powers and said, who send on a message? Where on they go? My friend, will you go back? And all the presidents
turned back,
made a turn and went back and allowed Gaddafi to be killed like a dog here in Africa. So who is in control? Going by what Museveni said?
Neo-colonialism.
And that is what is happening in Britain. That is what is happening. Kemi has been has been an advocate of this and so on. When did Kemi migrate? In the 80s? Maybe he was born there. I chose not to read about her. But I know that she was in the University of Lagos. And she doesn't look an inch like a Briton. After they don't use her now, they will still do them like they are doing to others, because we've had people who we are very big. You know, I mentioned the name Linford Christie. He was Olympic medalist for England. They were celebrating him until he was accused of drug use. And the British press began to say, Jamaican-born British athlete. The man wept. John Barnes was a very popular footballer.
Played for Liverpool.
So what I'm saying in essence is that we have to come back, look at ourselves and say, okay, now let's unite and forge a common front. Why is it so difficult for us to stand and speak with one voice? The diversity notwithstanding, we must find a way to create a path for ourselves and follow it. Otherwise, we will keep being a puppet on a string. And Britain and other superpowers will be dictating for us. What happens that anytime we elect a president, they want to take medical care, they will go overseas. Now, President Tinubu has taken residency in France. Buhari was in London. Well, this is the problem.
Now, lastly, before we leave this topic and talk about stories on the pages of the newspaper, it is now a norm that when the presidential election is coming and the election is almost here, when the campaigns have started, you realize if you have not gone to Chatham House to present what you have for the people, you have not campaigned. What's the problem?
It's also one of the things I just talked about. You know that the federal government, the current government, the government of President Bola Tinubu has approved that our ministers should go to London
to defend,
to go and do press conferences to tell the world what the government has done. Press conferences in London, not press conferences in Abuja and invite whoever you want to invite. So they have to go to London to be able to prove that yes, it don't happen. So that is just one of the ways to link it to Chatham House. Okay. What is the effect of Chatham House on us? I remember some things I read about Chatham House in 1972 when they would decide that, look, okay, it has to be like this, it has to be like this, about this same country. Oh no.
Away from there this morning, let's talk about that.
I just want to look at this story of and I'm looking from your paper now.
Yeah, thank
Nigerian Tribune. Talking about national secretary position. You know, the Southeast PDP threatening to dump party if, if they say recommends Ude Okoye and PDP management staff back Kushodu as acting national secretary. So just like when we're reading the paper and Samson mentioned something that dump the party, where are they dumping it to? Is it APC? And, we're looking at, is something wrong already, or they're just trying to use the secretary position as a cover-up, so to say?
Well, you and I know that something is wrong already. You and I know that the party is in disarray. You and I know that the shepherd has been struck and the sheep has scattered. You and I know that for a good number of years now, the party has not been able to hold its own together. So for that, it's not a surprise that this is continuing. And I know that you would have read in some places where people of the other political parties are saying, until we leave power, this party is not going to hold its own. This party is not going to be together. So it's not a surprise.
Is this not weakening the PDP?
The PDP is not just weakened. The PDP is like a dying camel. You know, so only one straw will break the camel's back.
A whole PDP.
Yeah, that's how it is.
So when we talk about the one-party state, are we heading that direction? Because even the APC will not agree to it.
Well, they will not agree to it because the people in APC know that when the table turns, they are still going to be the people in PDP. So they will be, excuse me, they will be running helter-skelter, so to say. Now, the crux is this. The party in power does not want anything to stop its progress and retention of power. And many of us know that by the time Tinubu gets his second term, which as it is now is as sure as tomorrow being Friday, God, you know, all things being equal, by the time they get their 16 years, they will begin their own implosion too. I already made that postulation somewhere, and I know that it is not going to remain like this forever. 2 days ago, the PDP called themselves together and said, look, enough of this, let's begin to find a way to bridge this free fall. Let's find a way to rein in the problems. But nothing is going to happen until after 2027. And after 2027, the people who ran away will begin to do a U-turn. Some will come back home, some will find elsewhere and so on. But hey, I know that there is definitely going to be a change. This dead PDP, no, the PDP is like in coma now.
The way you call it dead.
Yeah, it's as good as.
Is it the rise and fall of PDP?
It's going to, it's where it is now. By the time it's hibernating, it's like a smoldering fire and so on. One day it will come up again and give flames.
So the umbrella is no more protecting again.
No, the umbrella,
the broom has taken.
They need to repair the umbrella seriously now.
Okay.
Something.
All right, let's take this particular story. The president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria is in the news this morning. Tinubu approves establishment of forest guards. That's on page 19 of the Nigerian Tribune. Guards to reclaim forests from terrorist criminal gangs. Now, I want to ask you this question. Talking about reclaiming the forest, the approval of the establishment of forest guard, that amounts to you creating another harm for the security in Nigeria. But then, I want to put it this way. Why not equip the police, equip the Nigerian army, and then put them, maybe recruit more, and then create an arm in the Nigerian army that takes care of the forest. And then we know that these are more or less like forest guards. Why create another paramilitary or military
you see,
agents?
Before now, we knew there were forest guards. I remember Archbishop Abeguni, the Catholic Archbishop of Ibadan, spoke of forest guards. One of his, either a relative or a member of his community who was a forest guard, who was killed by herdsmen in the 70s.
Okay.
So there had been forest guards.
Okay.
Now, if he approves maybe the strengthening or maybe revitalization of forest guards, that's another angle to it. But one of the questions I have been asking is, we have Amotekun, we have civil defense, we have the police, we have the other security agencies and so on. Which one of them has been strengthened enough to do the job of securing the forest? Maybe forest guard is going to get this role now. But these forest guards, what is going to be their role? To secure the forests. How? The more we keep waiting for some of these things, the more we'll be learning how not to do some of these things. But by the side of it, are we not creating multiple agencies,
duplicating responsibilities,
duplicating duties? When the forest guard stops you, when you travel Benin, Shagamu, or Express Road, you laugh at some of the things. They will stop you at very short intervals, and when you say, but see your people there, they say, no, me, I am agency A, so those ones are agency C and D, doing the same thing. So you spend man hours on the road being checked for the same thing by the same kind of method and the same people.
Why not create a joint task force? A personnel from the civil defense, and one from the Nigerian army, Nigerian navy, and then put them in a task force to make sure that this job is done.
Unfortunately, we don't have it that way. And this one is also, election is coming. We have to create, we have a mine police now. The mining sites and so on. We have a police for that now. So we have to create all these things because elections are coming. And when the elections come and goes, when the election comes and goes, then we'll know
we'll be back to square one.
Where body go remain.
All right, let's look at this story. DSS drags Utomi to court over planned shadow government. First of all, what is shadow government, sir?
Shadow government is like a model to show the people who are actually running the government how to run a government. Interestingly, this current administration was about the first to talk about shadow government to the best of my knowledge. Or if I say to the best of my knowledge, I mean when I have become conscious enough to understand what some of these things mean. It's the same Tinubu's party that said, look, we'll form a shadow government, and indeed they did. And shadow government came, and I mean, what will the shadow government do? They will just be talking and giving maybe ideas, giving directions and so on. You are not bound to follow what they say and do what they talk. But now DSS is hounding people, saying they should. Does this shadow government affect the government in any way? I'm just beginning to get more.
Probably the government is looking at if eventually a shadow government is created, it might lead to a parallel government in the country. Okay. That might be a problem.
So these are model thoughts now. They are not what used to be. But shadow governments are actually part of the democratic system.
So why is the DSS dragging Utomi?
That's why I'm asking the same question too. Because I don't know when DSS will now begin to chase shadows. Because
exactly.
It's a shadow government and they are chasing a shadow government. They are chasing shadows.
Okay. There's another story we want to talk about this morning, and that's about JAMB. JAMB admits errors. 379,997 candidates to retake UTME. Now, Oloyede, while disclosing this yesterday, actually shed tears and took responsibility and then apologized to Nigerians and then the students who took the exam. Now, all that being said, the problem now is not just retaking the exams. How about those who lost their lives due to the schedules made by JAMB? How about people who encountered accidents on their roads and probably, even as at now, might not be able to sit for the exam even if rescheduled? Then, JAMB has failed in that area. Going forward, what should JAMB do to make, because what JAMB has done now is another pointer for the Nigerian government, especially INEC, that relying on internet, relying on IT for the election might actually be a problem by the next election, which is 2027. It's a wake-up call.
You see, first let me congratulate Professor Oloyede, because 2 weeks ago, during the JAMB, while the exam ran, I know that a lot of people raised concerns and lodged complaints. And I remember him when he went to Buhari with the Minister of State for, Minister for Education, that's Dr. Tunji Alausa. He said that if you encountered problems in the exams, go and hold your registration centers, all those
CBT
agents,
centers.
CBT centers, go and hold them responsible. That it definitely could not have been JAMB. So I want to congratulate him that now that he has seen the light, he has even come back, and so much that he was so much broken in the spirit that he shed a tear. That is noted. Thank you for shedding tears. But can the damage be assuaged, really? No. The answer is no. Because there were reports yesterday of a loss of life, a suicide case.
Yes, a 19-year-old girl.
That is foreclosed. There's nothing anybody can do about that anymore. Now, all the affected people would not have been captured by the 397 or thereabouts.
97,000.
Yes, 397,000 would not have captured all the people who were affected by the glitches. I know that in fact two radio programs were devoted to JAMB's glitches in the Ibadan. 2 radio programs. 2 episodes. If you now go to the 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory, then that will tell you that there would have been more, because it's way beyond the 1.5 million which they are talking about.
No, this one just has to do with Lagos and the Southeast.
So you can imagine
about 200,000 in Lagos, about one.
So look at, imagine what would have happened
if it was all
36 states. So from the point, in fact, it was an argument in our newsroom when the result was released. People are saying, the children want their phone. They now use phones. They no longer read. And so I say, no. These children read. I disagree that our education has fallen. I totally disagree. In fact, you will be challenged more now by the younger. Maybe your children bring home homeworks. So that's not even the issue. The issue now is, if we begin to argue what JAMB did, it's going to cut deep, because it's painful.
It is.
And it has altered the course of life of so many young Nigerians. So let those who are lucky enough to retake and have a receipt go ahead and do it. And those who are not lucky enough should lick their wounds and pray and work harder for the next one. But I am beginning to sense and agree with those who want to argue that they are finding ways of reducing the backlog of students who are eligible for admission. Because every year we churn out millions of young people, and they will be there looking for university admission. Let's us sit down and have an education summit in which we are going to agree that not certificate is not the only thing we need to make it as Nigerians and as humans. Then comparing JAMB with INEC, I beg, the difference is so very much. Sometimes I'll say, okay, INEC has 4 years to plan for elections, bearing the off-season elections. JAMB runs every year. If in 4 years you cannot even decide if you are to break the elections into seasons or into a week and say, okay, today we are facing, you can conduct 6 elections. Today we are in the southwest. We are going to run election in the southwest. Next week we are going to the southeast, south, northeast, north central, northwest, and so on. 6 election cycles, so that you will be done with elections before people are sworn into offices, so that you don't have a governor who will be thrown out of office after spending time as a governor and so on and so forth. But JAMB will not do that. INEC will not do that. So the difference between JAMB and INEC is a lot. Although they admitted his faults, the JAMB INEC man said go to court. That's a difference. He said go to court. The glitch is notwithstanding. Why did the glitch happen only in the presidential election? It didn't happen in the other elections. So I think the differences are very many, and we sometimes have to admit that there is power play in some of these things, and we hope that our children will not begin to lose further hope in the country, as many people have done already. It's indeed something that has to be generally and more profoundly looked into, to be able to help the country climb out of some of the reasons why people japa in the end.
Wow. Okay. Samson, you want to say something?
Well, I think before we go, very quickly, maybe in 2 minutes, I want our guest to actually say something, Mr. Sam Nwoko, to say something about the former head of state, Yakubu Gowon, is in the news this morning, and that story is actually on the Nigerian Tribune, page 4, saying no military incursion for no place for military incursion in Nigeria. That's coming from Yakubu Gowon. Going by the current trend in Nigeria, will it ever get to a stage where Nigerians will say, look, at this stage, this is as far as we can go? And then, with his current statement, are you saying they are all the past leaders, in one way or the other, they are interconnected, and they know how they run things behind the scene?
I think we've gone past the fear of military incursion in the country. It was Obasanjo who helped in creating that scenario, which has helped in removing the fear. 1999, he retired many military officers, and as generals, they called themselves and did 1 or 2 things. So we are looking at a situation in which it will no longer be attractive for the military officers themselves. Before now, it used to be a thing of a pride, so to say. Those of us who grew up in the military era used to look at it that way. But we are beginning to get more ingrained in the democratic culture, and it's beginning to lose its fashion. So I hope that what General Gowon is saying will endure indeed, because sometimes you don't know what is coming. Those guys could be, you don't know, but at the same time, the prognosis does not give us any inkling that there may be a military incursion in government. So it's no longer fashionable, and I don't think the fear is there anymore. So, and we hope that we grow in our democratic culture.
We hope.
And get better at it as time goes on.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Sam Woko. We hope we grow in our democratic culture. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Sam
Thank you
Woko
for joining us
is
in
the
the studio.
deputy editor of the Nigerian Tribune. We're so glad that you can make it here today, and thank you for all your insightful analysis. All right, we're still on Daybreak Live, reaching you from Dominion Television. We'll be right back after this timeout.